Hi and welcome to another episode. Like I said in the last one, I want to take out the RF module on my Amiga 1200. Well, yes, there's bits missing right now, but I've taken it out of the case. I didn't want to bore you with that. There's two screws at the bottom. You're left with this little clip. You should have this little clip. Now, or spacer, whichever, it's not really a clip, I suppose. As it focuses, you can see just on the bottom side there's a bit of metal that sticks down further. That should go to the bottom and it bends towards the bottom. That should go towards the bottom. So I'll leave that with the two screws. Now I have seen on other YouTube videos, and I'm not knocking their YouTube videos, they know an awful lot of stuff, a lot more than me, but when it comes to tools, it's always, you're better off getting the tool that's built for the job. Now this is a 5mm hexagon tool, and it fits right over the nut, like so. And just look how easy that is. Don't mess around using pliers, because all you'll do is damage the nut, and you will swear at yourself for taking so long an unnecessary time when all you had to do was order yourself a small £10 kit from Amazon. And we'll have a discussion about Amazon later, because I am going to start mentioning their name. The way that you can do it. See, I've done 4 now, and there's not as many seconds, but extremely quickly. I'll not bore you doing the whole strip, but I'll come back when I've done them all. And as you can see, it was that easy. It really is. Just get yourself a decent tool. This came in a little box of many of the little heads and screws, and not screws, different heads and different bits of the kit to let you open stuff up, and it works really, really well. So we have a daft amount of little nuts now, or if there are PC cases, there'll be risers. So now you lift up gently, and then I find it gets stuck here. Now I've never actually removed the RF thing before, but I have been underneath the motherboard before to make sure that it actually had a separator, this plastic thing, because I have had the odd Amiga and it didn't have that separator. Even though someone had already been in, they couldn't be bothered to put it back in again. And you need the separator because of all the different solder points underneath might touch the shielding, and then you would get a short, and bye bye Amiga basically. So let me mess around putting this out of the way, and then let's see the rest of it. Okay, that's that bit. Now what I have done already is 3D printed the part, and I showed this in the last video as well. It just clips over the top. Just get it just pushed right in and everything, and then clips together. It was the larger larger holes from the one that I had put in the description last time. I'll put it in the description again this time, of course. Now this is the bit we have to use your imagination. It goes like that somewhere. Obviously all nicely tucked in and everything, and it might even have to be that it has to be that way round. I think it is actually. But the point is that there's more than enough room to reach all the way across, and especially since this will actually be lower down when it's done. So it's going to fit there. So what we need to do is carefully turn this over, especially since I have left some other things still on. Obviously I've got my real-time clock and my USB keyboard mousey thing. So turn it over, and then we want to have a look at here. So let's zoom in a bit with my fantastically fast zooming capabilities. Dun, dun, dun. This really is as fast as it goes. Right, so, whoa, a little bit off center. Now this is the interesting bits. Now what we need is these 3 points here. Got to be very careful, but there's 3 points there. And then we need where the shielding of the RF is actually soldered in, which is this point, and then that one. So don't get that confused with any of these other ones, because that's to do with the power. It's this one here, and you can tell it one's not like the same as they used to say on a certain puppet type TV show. The shape of it, you can see that comes to a point, and that becomes like a flat point, just like on the other side. And then these ones, this one's horizontal of course, but you can tell the difference. And as I say, these 3 points here. So let me get my desoldering station, because I would recommend getting yourself one of those as well, because they are good things to have if you're going to be doing lots of desoldering type things. I'm no expert, but I do find even getting one of them makes it an awful lot easier than trying to use a normal soldering iron and using some wick and all that sort of stuff to get rid of it. So let me get that on and fire it up and see how far we get. Okay, hopefully you can hear me over the top of the wonderful fan to my desoldering station. I'm sorry that that's making a noise, but I need it to. Now, the one thing I've noticed plenty of people seem to do wrong with a desoldering station is they go at it, they pull the trigger, and then let go as soon as they think they've finished sucking the solder. Now, the way that I find actually works better, I'm not saying I'm an expert, I'm not, but what I find works better is rest it over the bit that you want to desolder, let it heat up a little bit, suck, and when you've finished, carry on sucking. I know that made a lot of noise, but what I said was that rest over the piece that you want to desolder, pull the trigger, and then when you think you've finished sucking all of the solder, move the soldering iron away, but still pulling the trigger. Because otherwise what happens is that the solder sort of sits in the gun. I'm not going to touch it because I'm not stupid, but it sits in the gun. And then it's still there for when you go in again for the next bit. You need to be pulling the trigger a lot longer than I see people doing it. So as you can see, I've desoldered that, and it appears to have desoldered beautifully. So over the top of the next one, pull the trigger, carry on pulling the trigger, and then let go. Again, it seems to have done it very well. Now, the one thing I have noticed people do with this, and they're probably right because as I say, I'm no expert, is desolder these 3 points first, since these are the electrical connections mostly. Obviously the other parts is for shielding and that makes it grounded or earthed. But we attack those 3 pieces last. Let's do these ones first. So again, and again, it seems to have done rather well. I'm just going to make sure over these 2 that seems to be a little bit better, and let's move the board a bit, because what we want to make sure is that the pins are actually sitting loose from where they were soldered. Yes, they seem to be better. Now let's do this top one. Now the problem is with these bits is that there's an awful lot more solder on them and they don't quite fit into the nose piece. Now I'll do this more off camera so that you don't get that annoying bzzz noise in your head. Okay, so I managed to get the RF out, but basically I ended up having to get a replacement glass bit for my soldering gun because I ended up shattering it because I was trying to clean it out. I just want to show you one of the easier ways of getting this done was to put the board this way up and then use the gun to actually heat the earth pins, and so that they would come out, starting at the top, doing it a little bit just to get a bit out, and then a little, and then do one to the left and a bit further on that one, the one on the right, a bit further on that one, and so on and so forth until they all came out. Being careful of the 3 pins at the bottom and really using that area as a place to pull as well. You know, this little bit of PCB here, and that helped get everything pulled out. So it all comes out in one nice bit. Put that to the side, then we'll lay it down. And now we need to clean up this area because I did put some flux on. I did that off camera. I should have point out to put some flux on first when desoldering. It helps the solder melt and everything like that. So a bit of circuit cleaner. I need a little bit really, don't need too much, and then clean that area off. And it's always a lot dirtier than you think, because basically if you leave flux on, that's not good for the PCB or the motherboard in this case. You can see a bit of filth that's come off now. Clean all that up. Okay, maybe the desoldering is not quite as neat as some people can do, but you know. Right, so I've got the bit of plastic, and realizing that the zip ties go to the flat area, so the bit that's a bit got a line in it, that goes to the bottom. Got some 3M double-sided sticky tape on here as well. And now we thread through a zip tie to go through to the motherboard and then back round again. So as I say, the notch that's in the 3D printed case, that goes to the bottom. I didn't realise that when I was looking at it before, but it suddenly clicked in my head when I was putting it down and why it was there. It's obviously to keep it all nice and flat. So I'm using 2 zip ties here because they're not quite long enough. You might get away with long ones that you've got, but the longer ones that I had were too thick to actually go through the holes of the motherboard. So I'm threading it through to the one that's already been done, and then that makes it easier to line up for the one that's already been put through. If that makes sense. Just watch what I'm doing, it makes it a lot easier. Right, so we pull it through and make it as tight as we can. And the 3M tape should help stop it being so wobbly. Just doubly making sure now that everything's nice and tight. Just trying to sort of push and flatten the zip tie down and see if we can get one more notch. And there we go. So I'll snip off the bits now, putting this spare zip tie out of the way, of course. I do recommend getting sort of like a tub or a jar of random sized zip ties. I've had this one for about 6 or 7 years. They just randomly come in handy. Obviously if you need a certain set, buy that set that you need, but just having some random ones about comes in handy. They were not that expensive really to get at the jar. In fact, anything I got it from one of the pound shops, I think. So that seems to be nice though. Just get the shielding to make sure that's all in the right place. So we line it up at the back. Watching out for that little bit again that we did when we took it out. So that's in. And then we need to get all the nuts or the standoffs back in again at the back. Just double checking that the HDMI port looks nice. I guess we might as well call it a HDMI port, even though it's not really, but we all know what we're talking about. See, fits nice in there. Okay, so what do we need to do now? Definitely get these nuts back in. Using a 5mm hexagon bit. Let's put a nut in the middle, no particular reason apart from it's in the middle. So I'll mess around getting the rest of them in. And there we are. We've got all the nuts in. I've also got the bottom part of the case on. But be careful of the nuts when you're doing this bit, because that nut, especially next to the composite port, needs to be sort of flat on the edge so that it fits past the plastic. So watch out for that one. So don't do that quite as tight as maybe as you do the other ones. So there's definitely enough room for this HDMI cable. As always, I'll put links to everything, but for this particular 3D print, it already tells you where what type of cable you need to get anyway. So let's get everything else put in. Okay, so we've got all the other parts. I'm just putting the SATA drive in, or whopping 240 gigabytes. Have I said that yet? And we get the 4X EI DE99 or the 4X EI'd 99. I'm sure someone will smirk when I said that. Now we get that firmly fitted. Let's get the GoTech drive back in again, getting the floppy cable in, and then getting the power cable in. That's all the correct way of doing it. There's no other way of getting it the wrong way around. So we'll screw that in. There we go. So we've got the piece that needs to go at the bottom. Remember that the little bit that sticks out at the bottom needs to go to the bottom. Come on, let's focus. There we go. Slide that in there. Okay, so that's that one in. And the next screw. Let's get the indicator lights in. There is only one way of getting it to go in, so don't worry about that. Let's get some screwdrivers out of the way and things. I don't want to cause a short. Right, time for the vampire. Dun dun dun. Now if you've received one of these, you'll know why there's a dryer sheet inside there. Let's get this wonderful contraption in here. So just make sure it's all lined up, and of course this is the way you're supposed to do it anyway, not from underneath, because there's just too much stuff stuck on top. There we go. Nice and firmly in. Let's get the HDMI cable in. Obviously trying not to pull on everything else. Definitely not on the fancy connection for the SATA drive. Let's put this in. Now I've pushed it up here, but I may have to move it later just in case maybe the keyboard rests on it too much or something. But definitely don't push it underneath, because you don't want to bend the vampire out of the way or anything. I know I did accidentally there, but stuff. And I do want to put the network stuff in, but I haven't printed out the port at the back, and I want to learn how to use that properly before I make a video of it. Yeah, I still need to make the 3D print. Let's get the next bit done then. The keyboard. So it rest down. No, it's not going to do it. The cable's in the way. So let's move the cable. Let's fold it up a little bit more. So it's up out of the way. I don't want it hanging over the fast eye though. That should do where it is. If you think it's going to move, you could always put some Captain tape down. I think it's fine, especially when the keyboard actually is on properly. There we go. Plug the ribbon cable in. Fold this out of the way. Right, that's it all plugged in. Make sure there's no shortage there, and right, let's get everything plugged in. I will put that into the case properly when I know everything's fine. Let's test the HDMI cable for distance. There we go, it's perfectly fine in there and it fits in a little hole as we already know. Get the RGB in, or the SCART. Don't need the audio that comes off of the SCART, we need the other audio that reaches around to the other side. I just want to show you the little HDMI switch that works here. It's got a few different cables, 25cm ones and 50cm ones, so that they reach to where I need them to go. And you know, going off to the HDMI splitter and going off to the OSSC and going off to my TV and everything, I've got to make sure everything works properly. So let's turn this on and see what happens. Got power. Let's go. I know it's in 4x3 at the moment, that's just because of the way it's currently set up. I'll flip across to the 720 16:9 when I know it's booted up properly. Hopefully you can see a little light flashing away in reflection of the mouse. There we go, it's booted up. So let's go across to 720. And let's test the benchmark. So we'll do a sysinfo, just so that we can make sure that the native resolutions are working. So I'll press a few buttons and there we go, it works. So I'm really happy with this. I don't seem to have broken anything. The sound works, everything just works. So the 3D printer bit works. Desoldered the RF unit and it's great. I'm loving the way that it's all working out now. So if you've got any questions, or you want some more ideas, or I've missed something out in the description, or you want to say something else positive or negative, it depends, if I can learn from it, then please let me know. So yeah, I'm really happy with this 3D print. I'll put a link directly to that as well, of course. So as always, happy gaming.